Oh my gosh, it's Romania Black and Chihayafuru, right? Oh, last episode we had episode 9, and episode 9 was it was so good. The ending of it was so good. Our poor boy Taichi. But I just got back from a convention that I went to with my brother. I'm going to be doing a video about it. I'm going to talk about Chihayafuru a little bit in that video. But I got to go to a Q&A panel with ProZD, who is on YouTube. He does the voice of Senshi and Dungeon Meshi alongside other voices from many other anime. But I wanted to go to his Q&A because I really respect him as a voice actor, as a content creator, and I respect his views on a lot of things of what he thinks are really cool shows. And we have very different tastes, I feel like, but he was very adamant about loving Chihayafuru, and I just felt so validated hearing him be like, yes, Chihaya is such an inspiration. Like, luckily there were no spoilers. I was like sitting there whenever he was like, I really love Chihayafuru, and I was like, ooh, am I gonna have to like plug my ears? But mainly all he said was, it's a great series, and Chihaya is so inspiring. And I was like, yes, I can, in 9 episodes alone, I agree with these sentiments. So I was super excited about that. I luckily was not spoiled on anything the whole weekend, which was great. But yeah, so I want to talk about some comments with episode 7 and 8 before we dive into episode 10. Now, do I think every episode of Chihayafuru is going to be as intense and crazy as last week's episode? Probably not, right? Otherwise, how would we breathe? But I do want to talk about some comments before we dive into episode 10. So, Foranoda said for episode 7, the poem of the day is Lonely Autumn, translated by Mostow as to the lonely house where the weeds 8 layers deep have grown rank. Not a soul can be seen, but autumn, at least, has come. The poet Egyo Hoshi was a Buddhist monk who lived about the end of the 10th century. Mastow explains that he was closely associated with other poets who frequently met at the Kawara mansion on the banks of the Kamo River, and suggests the poem was about this location. Other interpretations suggest a humble temple for the monk. That said, not much else is known about him. Given his background in Buddhist teachings, the poem captures the passing cycle of the seasons. Things come and go, and even for the lonely, autumn comes eventually. The hut and house imagery is very strong in this episode, in episode 7, with multiple poems using it to represent the mental isolation that Taichi and Tsutomu experience, as well as the physical kind. Taichi distanced from Chihaya in the previous episode, separated by the glass, etc., and Tsutomu shackled to his desk. Ultimately, they are freed, with the idea of autumn also evoking the same imagery of the red maple leaves that are associated with Chihaya and the Chihayaburu card. I love that. I love that for Taichi, Chihaya represents freedom, and I'm like, you can go all sorts of places shipping with that, and just like, it's so good. But like, I love the idea that it also says of, even if you are going through a hard period in your life or a trying time, that time will pass. If you're going through difficulties, those times will pass. Autumn will come eventually. It will have to move on to a new season. And I'm all for that, y'all. I love it. I love it so much. So thank you, Foranoda, for that card reading. Sarah, CE5WR4, R says for episode 7, one thing about Chihaya in terms of personality and even playstyle is that she lacks flexibility, in the sense that once she's latched onto something, it's hard for her to switch directions. So she's not trying to be rude by calling him Destomu, it's just she's heard everyone else calling him that, and so that's the name she's going to stick with. And honestly, I gave her such a hard time in episode 7, but I am right there with Chihaya in terms of when I pronounce a name a certain way, it fixates into my brain, and it's very hard for me to change how I say it. I literally have to practice over and over and over again until my brain eventually decides to switch over to the correct or alternate way of saying something. So I understand where she's coming from in terms of that. Also, she's pretty hyperfixated on getting Arata to play with them and getting up to his speed. But Taichi, if girl ever gets on your page, you are set. So Taichi's like, I know, I just need that to happen. So I also think what's interesting with Taichi's revelation as they played Flip Karuta is that Taichi sees Arata as his main rival. But here he realizes, oh, I can beat Chihaya. I think if he grows and becomes Chihaya's rival, it's basically telling her, you need to focus on me because now Arata is the least of your problems. And that has me excited. Yeah, I feel like having Chihaya become a rival for Taichi would be very healthy for him, because I feel like Arata has the idolization for both Taichi and Chihaya. Chihaya idolizes Arata as the man who got her into the sport to begin with, so he holds a very special place in her heart. And with Taichi, it's a very different kind of idolization, where Taichi thinks that Arata is unstoppable, and he doesn't think he's as good as him or can't measure up to him. But the thing is, Arata's not there, and we don't get Arata's opinion, or Arata isn't able to like express himself. So I think if Taichi refers to Chihaya more as a rival, she's there in flesh and blood. He can face her and build his confidence through that, whereas trying to face up against someone on a pedestal that you can't even see is a lot more difficult. So thank you, Sarah. That comment was really cool. And then William Pina for episode 8 says, I really hate that the subtitles changed Nishida's nickname from Nikuman-kun to Pork Bun-kun to Porky. It makes it sound like a derogatory term instead of a playful one. Just like how they changed Taichi from eyelashes-kun to eyebrows, which just makes no sense. Yeah, Pork Bun does not sound nearly as mean as Porky. And I think because I grew up in the US, Porky was very much, when I was growing up, and this series came out around the early 2000s, so I would have been around middle school to high school when this series first came out. Yeah, Porky was a very like mean-spirited nickname for someone that was overweight. And I was like, ooh. So it did kind of hurt me to hear her keep calling him Porky. I was like, oh, that's not nice. But Pork Bun is a much more endearing nickname, so that makes more sense. But as a character, I really like Nishida. Me too. And I love how the story doesn't rely on the usual tropes. There is no harem for Chihaya or Taichi. Oh, last episode, there is no harem for Taichi. Taichi, he's like the hottest character in the show. Nobody in that team cares, which was kind of hilarious. But I also like that Chihaya, she doesn't have a known harem, but I mean, Taichi and Arata and maybe Kana there. I mean, you know. Anyway, Nishida isn't a fat otaku, which is true. Kamano isn't a recluse who can't speak to girls. And Kana isn't a lolly to be objectified by others. So yeah, I do appreciate that they are not the Breakfast Club of tropes. They are very, very much their own people, and they kind of defy that. I like that a lot. They're all positive depictions of normal high school kids with normal problems, which is yet another reason why I love this anime. Yes! And my dog is being so silly and growling. But yeah, I agree. I really like the characterization in this show. I like how unexpected it was in a refreshing and positive way. And my heart goes out to this series already. And I'm only 9 episodes in. So, but thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of those comments. I am so ready to start this episode. Anyway, I'm so excited to get into episode 10 and see what all we're going to get, y'all. So, without further ado, we are going to start episode 10 of Chihayafuru. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's see what we get. I had every intention of just thinking this episode was going to be like really low key. Especially because episode 9 was like so dramatic in the ending of it. I'm like, oh, well, they're not going to do 2 of those back to back. So episode 10 will probably be like really low key. No big deal. No, it was so intense. And I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, we're already getting into like drama with the team dynamics and everything. Oh my gosh. So I didn't bring Whiteboard Kun out. I probably could have, but I thought we'd just talk through this one and go through, because the thing I would have brought Whiteboard Kun out would have been a little bit with Taichi and a little bit with the other 2 teams. I remember Retro Kun now. Man, Retro Kun, them cheeks, them hollowed out cheeks, which granted, some people have those, but they age his character so much. And then our blonde sadist who doesn't have a name, I don't think, but oh man, he has such like a smooth, sultry voice. But then you're like, oh, it felt very much like I've been rewatching Dragon Ball Z. And so it felt very much like, not Dodoria, but, oh, he's the one that Bulma likes in the Namek saga at first, and then he turns out to not be as charming and handsome as he originally intends to be. And then in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, she's like, kill it with fire. Yeah, oh my God, Zarbon, that's who it is. Yeah, the blonde remind me a little bit of Zarbon in a sense that he seems very charming and sweet because you can't see his eyes. He's a closed eye character. Oh no, that just hit me. I was having Bleach flashbacks of that anime. So if you've never watched Bleach before, hi, we're watching a series that came out around the same time. What were you doing? But no, in Bleach, there's a character whose eyes are always closed and then they open up, and when his eyes open, it is scary. That's who this guy's gonna be. Oh, he's gonna be one of those characters that opens up his eyes when it's a scary moment, like in Kuroko's Basketball, like in Bleach. The closed eyes characters are the ones you gotta watch out for. So I think he's one of the Class A's. I think he's one of the Class A players that's going to play against Chihaya. And we're going to see about that next week. Oh! So, okay. Let's break down this episode. Oh, that got me really fired up. I'm really excited. So, yeah, I immediately setting the tone for this episode, the fact that it's rainy season in June in Tokyo, the fact that there's the hydrangeas, they're all blue, all sadness, all rain, just setting the tone for the entire episode. I like that right off the bat. So yeah. Also, everybody being a team player. I love the dynamics on this team. So Mizusawa High got everybody at this tournament. There's 12 schools here competing. Basically, you've got to win at least 3 of your 5 matches to keep advancing, and they keep advancing. They're in the semifinals. They're going on to the finals next week, which is exciting. We're already there. I like this series does not waste time. They're just like, nope, we're going to get right to those matches, right to it. And I like in this series, it's more focused. It reminds me a lot of March Comes In Like a Lion, which if you haven't seen March Comes In Like a Lion, you should. But I like in that series is all about shogi, and the matches, much like Karuta, if you just focused on the matches alone, the gameplay might get repetitive over a period of time. So instead, what that series does and what this series does is it's more focused on the characters' mindsets and kind of where they're at in the moment playing and how that affects their performance, because I find that like infinitely more interesting than the strategy of the play itself. And I feel like once we get down into the nitty-gritty of like the bigger matches, then we'll get more into like the actual strategy and the play and the card placement and all of that. But for right now, it's just mainly the mindset of our players, right? And I love that Kana has them in official gear. I love that it's partially a marketing strategy for her family to show off the Hakama and just be like, look at them, look at the kimonos, and then come to our shop and get one of your own. Like, I like that there's partially it's for that reason, but also it's a mindset of dress to impress, dress to win. And they don't really talk about it in this episode because they are a new high school and they're just starting out, so they don't have the reputation. However, they're at regionals for the National High School Championship, right? The Tokyo Regionals. And they've got to win this to go on to the national match, right? What I like about wearing the kimonos is it does give this professional air of being a player that's experienced. And I know they say in this episode that it's like to prepare them for the king and queen matches, which I love. The one school is like, does she even know who the current queen is? She's amazing. I want to meet the current queen. Maybe we will in this series. Who knows? But what I like about it is it's such a good mindset from a coaching perspective of dressing to impress. And I try to tell students on the team that I coach all the time, because we perform for speech competitions, so you wear suits. But back when I competed, it was a very strict dress code of this is what you wore and these were the taboos. Here's what was like the unwritten rule of what you do and don't wear. Now, because freedom of expression is so big, which is a good thing, and because students' budgets are very varied, which is a good thing to acknowledge, there's not as much put on emphasis with demanding that a student competing wear a certain outfit, because there are budget constraints, there is inequity with, wealth gaps and stuff with students. So I'm glad that those are acknowledged, but we do tell our students, we're like, regardless of those biases are inherent. And so when you compete, it is like from a judging perspective, because I judge now in those competitions, there is an inherent bias that if you are the most cleanly dressed, professional looking person in the room, you automatically have an edge, even if you're not the best speaker. And that's just because you present yourself, and you present yourself with an aura of confidence and intimidation. It intimidates your opponent because you look clean. It makes yourself look good in front of the judge because you look clean. And if you don't have that, you have to almost kind of work a little bit harder to get up to speed, even if you're the more talented in the round. Now, that's not an always scenario. There are some people that walk into the round and they got it like that. The moment they open their mouth and talk, you're like, nope, that's the one. And the dress means nothing. But there are some that it really helps. So granted, in this episode, they can't really do a lot with that because they're a new school and this is the first match. But I would imagine going forward, if they get a reputation of being a good school, the kimonos will add to the intimidation factor, where you show up looking like you're dressed for a championship round in round 1. That would intimidate if I was competing against somebody in round 1 and they were already dressed like they were going into the final round, that would be kind of an intimidation factor. Like, oh, you all are very dressed to impress, and you guys clearly think you're going to go all the way. So there's a confidence there that I would have to account for. And I feel like it's kind of like the one team they face in the semifinals that's loud and abrasive, and they're cheering each other on, and it's an intimidation factor. I feel like the way that they dress, Kana has set up an intimidation factor without realizing that she's done it. And I feel like down the road, it's going to lead to that, right? So that's exciting. I'm all here for it. I want them to exploit that in the future because they all look amazing. I love Chihaya with the big peonies, like the flower. It's gorgeous. Taichi looks good in the green. He's green with envy against Arata. You know how you do. And then I like Nishida and Tsutomu in the blues. They look really good on them, especially the navy blue with Nishida looks really good. And then Kana looks amazing in the purple. So yes, players wear hakama for the king and queen matches. So you should get used to it now. Now, granted, they do make a big scene at this tournament. They're loud. They're like over talking. I always tell the students when we go to tournaments, I'm like, be professional. Don't be that guy. Don't be that person, rather. Don't be that person that's loud and like causing a scene. Like you just want to go in, do your best, and leave. Like, don't make an impression in a bad way. They kind of make an impression, and everybody kind of has opinions about them from this match, but you know what? I think it's interesting to note that Nishida is not trying to become a master. Neither is Taichi. So neither, we think, is Tsutomu. Chihaya is the only one that's like wanting to be a queen. She wants to be at the top of her game. So everybody else is just playing because it's fun and they like the camaraderie of it. I do like that Kana pushes them to wear the kimonos, though. She's like, you both look better than you were when you're wearing your uniforms. And they look professional. They look intimidating. Okay, hers is pink. It's more pink. You would fit in perfectly on a theater stage. I just love Kana. She's great in this. And of course, Taichi notices the traditional clothing by OE banner, which Chihaya looks amazing in that dark, dark blue. She looks fantastic. She looks great in anything she wears, honestly. But yeah, so everybody's getting set up. And of course, Taichi's like, why are you just standing there? And I'm like, Taichi, you should know by now, girl is excited to be at this tournament with other people that are super into Karuta as well. Like, Taichi's so chill sometimes that I think he can lose focus of the fact that Chihaya is a big Karuta nerd and she's just in awe of everyone being there. It's like when you go to a convention for the first time and you see like all these other people that are fans of the same show that you're a fan of. It's great. And he's like, oh, you're being rude. She's like, I'm going to text Arata. So I'm glad we follow up with this, especially after last week's episode. We follow up with this and talk about it. So Taichi, of course, is like, you've been texting Arata since your birthday, right? A lot since his does he reply? And she's like, it's shocking how he never replies. I'm sending messages just in case. But why did he text you instead of me? I always put my number on my notes and my letters, so he should know it. So she's just texting Arata nonstop. after she got the birthday text, because the birthday text was like an open invitation saying, we're clear to communicate, but he never texts her back. He always keeps her on red. She texts him things. It would be adorable if he was saving all of it, but the fact that she texts him and he doesn't respond adds to like the air of him being this on a pedestal deity-like figure. That's Arata, if you are trying to portray to her that you are not a god and you are a human, maybe respond back. So she doesn't continue to think you're this like idol that's far away that doesn't respond, that's like holier than thou. And I know Arata doesn't mean to do that, but it's like, dude, if you want her to not view you on a pedestal, respond back and be human, damn it. But then, and of course it was a different time, y'all, but Taichi's like, I can understand. We both feel that Chihaya is ours. I like that he says don't take pictures, and I think he says that because of the kimono company, and he does, you know, he's like, don't do that. But he's like, we both think that Chihaya belongs to the both of us. And that phrase, on the one hand, of course, this is, 2011, y'all. This is a 14-year-old series. It's dated a little bit. But on the one hand, they both care about Chihaya a lot, and they both love her, and that's amazing. On the other hand, I felt like Chihaya needed to have a Princess Jasmine moment where she's like, I am not a prize to be won. Because that phrasing of that sentence makes it feel like neither of them get too close to Chihaya because they're in a competition of who's going to win her hand. And there's a part of me that wants Chihaya just to be like, dudes, I'm not someone you win. Okay. So there's a little twinge of that. I know it's just the datedness of the series, but I was like, Chihaya is not yours. She's a person. You don't own her and you can't covet her. So there is a little bit of that. I was like, girl, and she doesn't know that both of them like her that way. She kind of friend zones both of them. So I'm like, And I feel like that's part of the series, is going to be them realizing over time that she's not a prize to be won. She's not something you guys are rivals competing over to obtain. She's not an object. You don't objectify her. She's a person, and you can like vie for her affection, sure. But at the end of the day, it's her affection to give, And I'm sure that that's not, and I'm probably taking it a little too seriously in that moment, but just the phrasing of that, like the inner feminist in me was like, But yeah, I'm sure that I'm giving Taichi a much harder time than he probably deserves. And she's like, well, he's acting strange, right? Because she has no idea. And so like, you always stand out. And so we have Hokuo. Hokuo is the team that Retro-kun plays on now. And they're like our 5-time champion team. They're basically Shiratorizawa. But yeah, poor Retro-kun, his cheekbones being sunk in makes him look like he's, he looks like a stretched out ego from Blue Lock if he was a teenager, right? The blonde though, the closed-eyed blonde character, which Retro-kun has his eyes closed as well. There's 2 of them. They have 2 of them on their team. Even more scary. And she's like, oh, Retro-kun. I like that it takes her a second. She's like, wait, who are you? And he's like, well, you forgot about me for a minute. She's like, well, I forgot, but then I remembered. That's how I would be. I'd be like Chihaya. I'd be like, oh, I forgot who you were, but now I remembered. So see, long time no see. She's like, is your high school in this tournament? That makes us rivals. I love that she immediately is like, are we rivals? Can we fight each other? She's the Goku of Karuta. All she cares about is fighting and playing Karuta. Girl is Goku. She's a female Goku, and I live. But he's like, rivals. He's like, you guys are a new club. We're not at that level yet. We're a Karuta powerhouse that's made the national tournament 5 years in a row. So there's like 6 of them on their team, which is interesting. Like they have an alternate. I'm assuming the blonde is probably one of the Class A players. I'm wondering if the guy in glasses, because, a guy in glasses, I wonder if he's the other one. I don't know. Interesting. He's like 2 of the 8. There's 8 of them. 2 of them of the 8 members on the team are Class A. Okay, but not him, right? Because what does he say here? He's like, our team is incredible. And he's like, and I might add that I'm performing very well for a first year. Okay, I like that he keeps talking and she just completely zoned him out in that moment, being like, 2 members in Class A. Okay. She's like, well, my team's just as amazing, and we'll blow you out of the water. Girl is like Goku and Hinata from Haikyuu mixed together, and I love it. And he's like, what are you saying? I love his like spindly hands. I like everyone here is just playing barefoot, although barefoot on those floors. But yeah, she's like, only one team will make it to the Omi Jingu. So they have to beat this national champion, this team that's made it to nationals 5 years in a row. I like kind of saying, you know, a woman must always move with grace. Being like, just, you're wearing this kimono. She's like, don't mess this kimono up. It's my family's, girl. Show some grace and dignity. So we have our 12 teams. I like Nishida sitting there wiping his cheek. That's a cute little gesture there. But okay. So interesting. At least we weren't placed in the same group as Hokuo. Yeah, right off the bat, they were in a different bracket. Of course they were. So I love that everybody's talking about what they're going to do. We just need 3 people to win their matches for a victory. And then Tsutomu's like, I was able to survive that brutal camp. And I was up late last night practicing. Which, of course, going into this, Tsutomu has a lot of stress already because he wasn't studying for the test he was, you know, wanting to do well on. Instead, he was practicing. So, and of course, because of that, his frustration would come out more and more as he wasn't doing good. Because it is frustrating when you practice hard and then you immediately get shown up and it's like, it is frustrating. It super very much is. And then she's sitting there being like, my love of classical poetry is greater than anyone else here. I love it. And then Chihaya is just like, I want to win. I love it. She's like, win and go to the national tournament with this team. Now, that is important. That is important. That is very important because there are some assumptions made of why Chihaya is playing Karuta and playing in this tournament that I think Chihaya would debate. And so in this moment, it's important to remember that Chihaya does not say, I want to win this tournament to go face Arata. She does not say that. She's like, she's not saying I want to win this tournament so I can go face him at nationals or see him at nationals or whatever. She does not say that at all. She says, I want to win this tournament and go to nationals with this team. Because at the end of the day, Chihaya's MO is playing Karuta and sharing that love with others around her who share it as well. She doesn't, at the end of the day, her MO is not hooking up with Arata at nationals. Taichi may think that because he's jealous and wants her love to be directed towards him and not where he thinks it is, which is Arata. But that's not where Chihaya's mindset is. Like, yeah, sure. Seeing Arata there is a bonus. Seeing Arata there would be incredible. And she would be 100% on board of that happening. But it's not the reason she's going. And I think that gets brought up in this episode and it doesn't get resolved, which I feel is going to be like a conversation for down the road, right? But yeah, she's like, I want to go with this team. So they all get set up for their matches and they start out against these. Is green shirt the new red shirt? Right? Is that it? And so the girls that end up playing them in the semifinals are all-girl team. They remind me of that team in Dodgeball that faces in the opening match of that movie, the girls that like Troop 74 or something like that. I also love that these girls are like, does she even know who the current queen is? Like, these girls know. And they probably like look up to her and like she's a celebrity. So yeah, me with short hair is up there reading the cards. And then we start out, and I love that intensity. And immediately, Chihaya gets the attention of the blonde sadist. She immediately gets his attention, which he does say he likes toying with pretty girls. So, at first, I was like, he's a cutie. And then he's like, I like toying with pretty girls. I was like, ooh, never mind. Good feeling gone. The sliminess set in. But she's like, oh yeah, I need to be graceful. I'm glad that her trying to be graceful doesn't sacrifice her being a good card player. But yeah, so Tsutomu, and granted, Tsutomu has every right to be messing up and being nervous in his first official match, because doing a training camp and practicing with each other is one thing, but then actually getting to a competition and doing it in front of people you've never faced before is something completely different. Completely different, right? There's a lot of factors you just can't prep for. He's like, I didn't take any cards. So we had Iko University and Mizusawa, and then Shuri Yukon and Hanasaki. So we have, like, in the preliminaries, they win. They got their first match out of the way. So Nishida says, or Taichi says, I'm guessing Kamano was up against their strongest player. And he's like, bad luck on your part. And he's like, oh, really? And he's like, luck of the draw, more or less. So I like that Taichi is trying to be a leader in this episode. And he does some things very well. And some things I'm like, Taichi, why'd you do that? But we'll talk about it. So one good thing is Taichi was like, hey, don't sweat it. You were up against their strongest player. You're the novice on the team. You were up against their strongest player. Just bad luck on that part. Like, you just got the luck of the draw and ended up with that person. And it is what it is. So, I mean, I like Taichi saying that because he's like, hey, it's not a big deal. Like, you were up against their strongest person right off the bat. So what could you do? And Nishida kind of backs that up. But then they're like, Mishima, he says, I don't mind putting Ayase in the middle for now, but we won't need to rethink our order. Won't we need to rethink our order when we face stronger schools? So whatever order you put them in is the order that it's a strategy, right? Because you're ordering up your people to face off against the other side. So it's like, what is the other team going to do? Are they going to put their strongest in the middle? Are they going to start with their strongest? How's that going to work out? Like, there is some strategy in how you organize the teams to play against one another. And he's like, yeah. And so will Hokyo use a standard order? Now, in this, he's like, who are the two Class A Hokuo players? And Nishida kind of made me a little bit irritated this episode because Nishida was the one who kept saying, we just need you, me, and Ayase to win. Nishida was the one that kept saying it. And I wanted somebody to tell Nishida, like, stop. Because that is a horrible team mindset to start. When you just say, we only need Taichi, you, me, and Ayase. We're the only ones that we need. We can use Kana and Tsutomu to face their toughest people, and they can be the sacrificial pawns, and then we'll guarantee a win. Like, yeah, that's a strategy, sure. But as far as team dynamics goes, that's going to make the two players that you're saying you don't need to win feel like shit. And why would you do that? Don't do that. So it's like, I would never want anybody on the team I coach to think that they are the bottom links. Like, nobody wants to feel that way. That is just that's horrible team morale building. And I wanted to, like, smack Nishida upside the face and be like, what are you doing? Because of course Tsutomu, who is already struggling with insecurities after losing the first round, you just said in front of him, we don't need him. We're just going to sacrifice him. What's the point of him being there? You're just using him. I was like, ugh. I wanted to smack him. We should try to match Kana and Tomu against their Class A players. And then I like Kana kind of breaks it up before they can get any further than that. She's like, where is Chihaya-chan? And they're like, oh, well, she's over there sending a text. Uh-huh. She's like, again, she's been sending a lot of those recently. And then Nishida knows that it's Arata. Nishida stirs the pot, damn it. I like Nishida a lot, but he is a pot stirrer in this episode. Not only is he like making Tsutomu, he's being really insensitive towards Tsutomu, which I'm like, dude, what? But then he brings up Arata. Now, Nishida brings up a lot of this and stirs the pot. And I'm like, Nishida, we need to have a talk. Because he says, oh, it's Arata. And then she's like, who's that? I like that Taichi looks over to Nishida being like, do we have to bring up Arata? Do we have to talk about him? I don't want to talk about him. And Nishida's like, oh, we're talking about him. And he says, the person who taught Ayase Karuta. He's ridiculously good. And he's in Fukui right now. So he's the one that says this. He says, Ayase must have started a Karuta club so she could see him at nationals. That is all conjecture, which is not what Chihase actually thinks. Not Chihase, I'm mixing her names together. But Chihaya doesn't actually think that. Like, yeah, she wants Arata to know that they're doing well because they're friends, but she's not going to nationals for him. And I got kind of irritated that Nishida was putting words in her mouth of stuff that she had not said or did. And of course, Kana is like swift waters parted by the jagged rocks. Like, Kana, of course, is like instantly shipping them together. And Taichi's like, I hate my life at this moment. And Tsutomu is like, is all of this just so she can, get a booty call at nationals? And Nishida says, well, she's obsessed with Karuta. I'm pretty sure she just wants to play strong opponents. So in one breath, Nishida starts this whole thing and gets this pot stirred. But in the next breath, he's like, or she just wants to go play strong opponents and she doesn't actually have a thing for Arata. Who knows? I'm like, quit stirring the shit, Nishida. Like, quit it. And Taichi's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Yeah, clearly, and Nishida does not seem to get on the fact that Taichi likes her and is not wanting to talk about that. And they're like, is sure you can strong? And they're like, well, they're pretty serious about Karuta. But you can take it easy, Kana-chan. Yeah, and Kana, the thing about it is Kana and Tsutomu have very different reactions to this. Kana takes it way more nonchalant than I would have been. I would have been like Tsutomu. I would have been pissed if somebody told me that I could just take it easy, that I wasn't needed for the win. I would have been mad. I would have been like Tsutomu and been like, why am I here if you're just using me? No, thank you. But I mean, Kana is really sweet and she just takes it in stride. But I would have been like Tsutomu, like, what the fudge? Right? Like, he just kind of gets mad about it. And he's even practicing, like, trying not to let it phase him and everything. And then they get up there and he faces off this guy that looks like the most stereotypical shonen character. And he ends up losing to him. And then Kana wins her first match. And I thought Kana winning her first match was going to, like, snap him out of it because, she proved that she was there for a reason and everything was great. And that she could stand up there and win the match. But poor Tsutomu, it didn't work out for him. And I felt so bad for him in that moment. And it's always hard from a coaching perspective because I've been to tournaments where it's always fun when you, like, break into your first final at a tournament or you win your first event. Like, that's always a big moment of like, yes, you did it. And I watched this last year where there would be people on the team I coached that wouldn't break. And then there'd be people that would break for the first time. And it's like it's hard from a coaching perspective to, on the one hand, you want to celebrate that person's success, but then you can see how the other person is disheveled and downtrodden about it. And it's finding that balance of being like, hey, we support our team members and their successes. You'll get that as well. Just keep trying. It'll happen. Don't worry about it. But that can be so hard to make that person understand in the moment because you feel so stressed and sad about not breaking or not doing what you needed to do. And so they're like, wow, sure you can must have something against men. I almost lost because my opponent had a scary face. So yeah, and then they went 4-1, and then right now they're in the preliminaries. Today was the first time I ever felt like I was the one attacking. It felt good when you take a card from the bottom right side of the opponent's field. Yeah. So I love it. I love that Kana's like celebrating her group win. Anytime you have Tsutomu or any character that's just quietly eating there, it's like, that's not a good sign. When they're quietly eating and not joining in the conversation, that's not a good sign. That means they're stressed, they're disassociating, stuff is going down. And Ishida's like, we made it out of the group stage. We just have to win 2 more matches to win the tournament. Okay, I think we have a shot. Okay, so yeah, so basically by losing, if they lose once, it's over. It took me a second in the reaction to realize what they were saying. They just have to get through semifinals and finals. That's all they have to do. So they just have to win 2 more matches. And that's why I think we should change the order so the 3 of us can't lose. Yeah, I just, against Tomihara, I just hate the way Nishida phrases that. From a coaching perspective, from a competitive aspect, I would never, ever be like, okay, you 2 are less valuable than us, so we're gonna sacrifice. Like, you just don't do that. That's just not cool. It's not kosher. And Nishida, I'm like, even though you're not used to playing on a Karuta team, weren't you playing in tennis? Did y'all do that on the tennis team? Like, but even in tennis, they're playing by themselves unless they're doing doubles. So it's like, I guess not. I guess it never came up. I just, that irked me so much because of course it would make Tsutomu feel like really bad. And they're like, they have one really strong player. We'll mass Tomu against that player. And I get where he's coming from because strategically, yeah, you put your strongest player against your weakest player so it gives the others a chance if you're trying to win 3 out of 5 matches. But for that one player, if they're not on board with it and they don't get where you're coming from, it does sound like an insult. And it does sound like they're just there to be a placeholder. And so I get where Tsutomu was getting all up in his head about it. And she's like, well, we don't know what order they're going to use. And he's like, hey, can I go home now? And he's like, you guys have enough wins without me. I'm only here because you need 5 people. Anyone could take my spot. And I don't blame Tsutomu for feeling that way, because why wouldn't he feel that way after hearing all of that? You know? He's like, you don't need OA or me. And Chihaya is like, well, who said that? And I'm like, Nishida. She's like, that's not true. And he's like, it is. Your goal is to reach the national tournament because there's someone that you want to meet. Now, Chihaya, he didn't say errata. He didn't say errata. He just said, you only want to go to the nationals so you can meet someone. And Chihaya's like, when did I say that? When was that a thing? She's like, excuse me. He's like, that's all you care about. And of course, Taichi is like, well, son of a bitch. Taichi knows that Tsutomu heard Nishida say that she's only going to nationals to see errata. And I'm sure Taichi knows. Well, here's the thing. Taichi probably thinks that's not true, but does he know for sure? So he's probably questioning it. But it's like, Chihaya's like, that's not it at all. He's like, that's all you care about. And Nishida has no right to look surprised because he started that rumor at the beginning of this episode. He's like, I'm going home. There's a test coming up and I didn't get any sleep last night. Now, Taichi, in this moment, says that I'll let you skip the semifinals, but you'll be playing in the finals. And that's an order. Taichi has a lot to learn as well, because I get what he was going for in that moment. He was trying to be a leader and put his foot down and be like, hey, you're not going home. We need you for the finals. You get this round to dry it up and get yourself together, but you're going to come back in the finals. But I'm like, that's not the way you should have gone about it in this moment. And I think Taichi realized that by the time they got to the match. Because she's like, Taichi, come on now. And he's like, well, he can't take any cards with that mindset. And then she's just like, sure, just forget about him. And then Taichi's like, well, it's not his fault. We're still playing Karuta individually. But we aren't a team yet. And Chihaya's like, but we've been doing team things. She's like, we came here as a group. We're all wearing kimonos. We're playing together. Like, bless her heart. Chihaya's like, it's not that hard. For the team mindset, she's like, I don't understand what's going on. And then, of course, the thing about it is Chihaya is very emotional, but girl does not like, the way she processes stress is different than others. So for her, she's just like, I don't understand. I thought everything was going well. What's been going on? Taichi processes stress differently. And he's like, we have to win and make it to the finals. And so like the 4 of us need to score 3 wins. And he's like, and so they read the school order. And then Taichi here saying, you definitely can't lose. Again, Taichi doesn't phrase it right. I was like, you know that she's stressed from what just happened. You could see it on her face. You know there's a lot of pressure going into this. The last thing you should tell someone when you're in a do or die situation is, hey, you definitely can't lose. It's all on you. I'm like, don't say that to her. I'm like, Taichi, that's not what you do. My dude, that's not what you say. I was like, oh no. I mean, what he should have done instead was center himself and encourage her and be like, hey, team is here for you. You can't just tell her, like, we're not a team yet. You got to keep winning. Like, you can't put that pressure on her. And again, Taichi is probably projecting what his mom has done to him. And so that's all he knows to do. But again, this is like a learning moment for Taichi. It's like, Chihaya doesn't work that way. And you should support her and cheer her on. But don't put that added pressure on her that she can't lose. Because all you're doing is stressing her out even more. Because, yeah, she gets super stressed. She's like, and then now she's in her head being like, I didn't realize that Tsutomu felt that way about all of this. So, yeah, she looks super stressed. And they're all like, nobody's in the zone. And then these girls all came in like having their like Taichi is good under stress because he can somehow pull through it, but Chihaya is not. Like, she gets in her own head in her own way, and I don't think anything Taichi did helped in the moment. He course corrected later on, but I was like, Taichi, my dude, you and Nishida need some team building 101, because for being the leaders, y'all need to work on some things. And he kind of does work on a little bit as we go, but this match was so stressful. And she's like, it will all be for nothing if we lose. Yeah. So, and I'm like, all the stress that was put on her from what happened with Tsutomu, from what happened with Taichi putting that extra pressure on her, she missed her card, which at that point I was like, oh my God, like you would think she'd never miss her card, and then she does. Oh, which is so scary. So then we have our blonde being like, you know, the other team's not that strong. They're just really loud as an intimidation factor. There isn't a team that's stronger when they keep your mouths shut. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, Retro-kun is doing a tarot card reading to determine who is going to be in the next round. I love that he has his own cards. It's ridiculous. He's like, they're retro cards instead of tarot cards. I'm going to use these to divine our opponent's order. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what's scary is you're right 80% of the time. 60 it reminds me of Anchorman. 60% of the time, it works every time. So he's like, it looks like we'll be facing Tomihara West. But yeah, Retro-kun's wrong. He was 80% of the time right, but this was one of the ones that he was wrong with. And he's like, if Mizusawa wins, I want to face the girl with the long hair. I like that he has his eyes set on her, which is scary. And then he's like, well, she's got good instincts, but she's not that impressive otherwise. And he's like, she's no match for you. And he's like, I like to toy with pretty girls. I'm like, nope. He's a closed eyes character. Nope. Scary. Nope. He's a geen. We don't like that. No. And he's like, the S in pseudo stands for sadist. Okay, so his name is Pseudo. Pseudo is for sadist. Okay. Well, Pseudo is terrifying. I don't know how I feel about him. But then Pseudo ends up thinking that Chihaya is a sadist. And I'm like, no, girl's not a sadist. You were very wrong, sir. She's kind of the opposite of that. I do love in this part here where Tsutomu stands up for Ayase. He stands up for her, saying she won't lose, and runs to help her. Like, he can't help but be a sweetheart. Like, Tsutomu's so cute. So things aren't going well. And Taichi tries to course correct, telling her to do one card at a time and to pull herself together. But again, I'm like, Taichi, you're not doing it right. And luckily, she's like in her own head, and Taichi's like, well, she's not her normal self. So what do we do? And then he thinks back to what he did, and he's like, if I'm going to order people around, then I need to pull myself together. And I love that. I love that Taichi let his insecurity and his fears get the best of him in that moment, and he made some bad decisions, and he realizes it there, and he's like, if I'm going to help out Chihaya, I need to get it together. And so she's like, what do I usually do? And in that moment, he makes the move that splays the cards everywhere. I love when he goes back through and he's like, okay, pull yourself together, Taichi. Get a good mindset. You've got this. Project confidence. Project team building 101. Give everybody a head pat as you would. And then he like gives the encouraging word. He's like, Nishida, you win your match first. All right. And then he's like, that'll make it easier for the rest of us. I'll follow suit. And he's like, Oe-san, hang in there. You got this. I've never seen you play so well. You can win. And then he's like, Chihaya. And I love he looks over and he says, you can win if you just breathe. And she's like, oh yeah, breathing. Converting oxygen. Oh yes, of course. I love he's like, take a breath. You got this. And again, that's what you gotta do for Chihaya. Chihaya is not the type of person that handles stress well. So you can't put added stress on her. You gotta encourage her. She is someone that she likes a praise kink. You gotta use positive words of reinforcement if you want Chihaya to do well. You can't do negative reinforcement on this girl. That doesn't work. Keep it simple. It's like, she needs the kiss method. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? Or the kiss method for pseudo is keep it sadist, pseudo. And then Chihaya gets back in the game. I love when she sees Tsutomu through the door watching, and she's like, he came here. And she has the moment with the bird flying overhead. It's like Gohan and Dragon Ball Z in the Cell Saga. I'm like, girl. She's like, to her, she's like, Tsutomu didn't go home. He's still here. He's rooting us on. We're all still friends. I'm like, girl just needed that. She needed to see it. And then she gets it. Uh-huh. Now, whenever Pseudo is like, oh, all of a sudden she's really good, she must be a sadist. And I'm like, no, sir, she just had a crisis and found her way out of it. But you keep thinking that, sir. You keep thinking that. So apparently Pseudo is going to try to play Chihaya next round. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, and so they end up, okay, so Kana lost. So then it's up to Chihaya. And she manages to get at the end. And he's like, you can do it, Ayase. And she gets it. All right. And then, of course, promptly Chihaya, she just falls over, like you do. Mm-hmm. Having her post-match narcolepsy. Reminding me of Jinx Monsoon. I love they had to carry her out. I love that Nishida and Taichi carried her out. That was great. But I also like Kana. Kana is such a sinner in this episode. I love her being an anchor because even when Tsutomu rushes out, she's like, you don't get to run away. She's like, straighten up your obi, straighten up your tie and everything and your sash and all that. I love that she gathers him and she's mother. She gathers, she puts them together and she's like, listen, here's what we're doing. Look at this. I love that. I love what she does in that moment. It's so sweet. And she's like, you get yourself presentable and ready to go. And then I love that she says, have you noticed everyone's feet? They have calluses. They've been kneeling on the mats for many years. It makes sense we can't beat them yet. I love that. And that I like that we get where her insight was coming from. She's like, look, we're not there yet. It doesn't mean we're not going to be there, but we're not there yet. So it's okay that we're beginners. We'll make up for it. We can't expect to be champions in a day. I love Kana. She's such a great character. And I love she's such a anchor for them. It's so sweet. And then when he says, congratulations on your first victory, like he's like, I didn't get to tell you before because I was so in my own head thinking about myself that I didn't acknowledge your victory. So that was, so good. It's so good, y'all. So good. But then, yeah, I'd rather be on a team that puts in all this effort for the mats. And they're like, the 5 of us are a team and the finals are next. And she's like, fight! We need you to stand a chance. I love it. And Chihaya's like, this is what I wanted all along, for us just to be a team. Don't say that we're all just individuals. We are working individually, but we're also a team. So I love it. Yes. Oh my gosh, what an episode. This episode was so freaking good. It was so good. So good. So we're going to face Retro-kun's team next week, or in the next episode rather, which is going to be exciting times. Apparently Pseudo is going to fight Chihaya. I don't know how that's going to work out. I imagine Retro-kun will probably face Taichi. Probably. I would imagine so, but I don't think that Retro-kun is one of their Class A people, so we'll see how that goes. I think that Pseudo is one of their Class A's that's going to face Chihaya, so. But I really want Tsutomu to win a match. It would be very cool if Tsutomu was the reason they got to Nationals after this episode, that he won his match and pulled it off for the team. That would be awesome. It would be something if Chihaya lost her match and Tsutomu won his, and that was the deciding factor. But we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm glad Taichi pulled it together at the end there. I'm glad Tsutomu came in and cheered Chihaya on. I feel like at some point we're going to have to address what Nishida said about them going to Nationals to see Arata, and Chihaya being like, no, I want to go with you guys because it's fun and it's Nationals. And if we see him, we see him. And if we don't, we don't. But we'll wait and see if we'll get that next week or in episode 11 or not. Anyway, I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 11. I cannot wait of Chihayafuru. Bye.